I'm figuring it out. So if I expose it, and there we are. Lovely. There we are. We're done. Yeah, there. Let me see. Let's see. I'm Sabelo Mlangeni. I make photographs. I'm here as part of the Denning visiting artist at Stanford. How I sort of found photography and how I was hooked to photography was through a photographer in my community in Driefontein. She was looking for an assistant, someone who will assist her to deliver images in the community of Driefontein. The love for it sort of grew from there. In the looking, some other images, you don't have to really freeze them. You can keep them somewhere back in your mind. I think it started from there and then sort of moved to the physical. So it was like a very black community.
Very much so.
So yeah. It means the whole area, and then that building there.
My name is Missionary Cabrita. I teach African history here at Stanford. I'm an associate professor in the history department and also by courtesy in religious studies. I grew up in a small southern African country called Eswatini, formerly Swaziland. And Zionism is a form of indigenous African Christianity that's the majority religion in Eswatini. It's a form of Christianity that's very invested in the body and particularly in faith healing. A lot of Zionist churches don't actually have formal church buildings. They worship outdoors. They have their services on mountains and hillsides. My initial thought was actually to put together a body of work that looked at Zionism in the US, juxtaposing with Zionism in Southern Africa, and kind of a way of reflecting on this kind of transnational connection between the two movements. And Sabelo's work kind of immediately popped up as someone who was kind of doing really, really interesting work, largely in black and white. And I was just really struck by his very kind of thoughtful, considered engagement with people and with communities.
Imvuselelo is a very intimate body of work that looks at my relationship with the Zion Church and looking at the community in Driefontein and the community in Johannesburg. You kind of reach a certain age where you start other new questions. They come up, about, your relation with church now in terms of identity and how do you identify yourself around the church.
We were actually just having a conversation about how these kind of more explicitly global biennials try to sort of surpass or transcend the rhetoric of the nation state by positioning themselves as very global events.
What metrics would we then use to replace the idea of nation state?
The Denning Fund, I think, is really interested in having artists engage meaningfully with students and the wider Stanford community. I don't think it's a residency that's about the artist just kind of holing up in a studio and producing amazing work. So I immediately thought that a class would be the ideal way to have students both come in contact with Sabelo but also with his work. One of the kind of amazing strokes of luck with Sabelo's residency is that the Cantor Arts Center decided that they had space and bandwidth to do an exhibition of his work.
I was thinking a lot about, that's why I call it Imvuselelo, because the founding father of the Zion Church was from here in America. I was in this kind of space of interacting and also involved in a class with students. I have to sort of talk about my work in a sort of the broader kind of perspective. I think I benefited from being in the class with the student. And that exchange for me set this residency and this program apart.
CME, Christian Methodist Episcopal.
Okay. When did you buy it from the Presbyterian Church?
I don't know, but we can find some history upstairs.
Mm-hmm. And other daycares around the city.
Let's see what we have here.
1945. The American actor Danny Glover. This was his church. Remember that film I told you about, Last Black Man in San Francisco?
Yes.
He was in the church.
So that's probably the one with the most history of what happened.
Yeah. Do you mind just getting a picture of this? Is that all right?
Yes,
Just
that's
I've got
fine. That's fine.
These are sort of some very initial conversations, and I'm hoping to, you know, build up some relationships with pastors in the area and see if you might be interested in collaborating.
I had kind of different ideas, and one of them was to travel or take a road trip, go to spaces occupied by black communities. This is when Joel kind of introduced me to the churches around the Fillmore area.
I moved to San Francisco about 4 years ago, and my family and I chose to live in the Western Addition, which I rapidly found has this incredibly rich history of being kind of a major hub of African American life, culture, history in San Francisco, but also ultimately a very poignant story in the sense that that community from the 60s onwards was subject to what was called urban renewal, but some community advocates called black removal. That really changed the nature of the neighborhood and effectively priced out many African Americans. So that today there are very few remnants of the kind of very vibrant African American life that lived in that part of the city. But what you do have is all of these churches. So within a 1 mile radius of my house, about 30 historically black churches. These churches are informed and shaped by the same evangelical heritage that formed the Zionist church. Many of these churches, the largest being AME, American Methodist Episcopal Church, actually sent missionaries to South Africa in the 19th century.
What you going to do with my picture?
With your picture, I'm going to bring it back to you.
Oh, you are?
Yes, it's okay, as a birthday gift. 25. I'm looking to heaven, to Jesus. There. Nice one. Knowing that most of the community members, they lived around those churches, but now most of them, they don't live around there. And then somehow, I think it changed my kind of looking at the surroundings. So I'm also starting to looking at the houses that they were around there and sort of kind of try to think about this kind of scratching into these layers of history. Lovely. All right, we go for it. Everyone tries to deny. I'm not a photographer. I'm just a but I guess you don't see much. If you are in that kind of a process of moving and walking around and looking, you are in self. Woo, 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 woo. For me, I think song is very important. I love like using hymns and sort of singing at this moment because it's sort of where I'm in this self that I'm talking about.
Wonderful day, because this is truly the day that the Lord has made, so we're going to rejoice and be glad in it. If you look at our church, history is important. And that kind of informs our mission. It informs our purpose. Because it talks about the parents and grandparents and great-grandparents who established this church and put all their work, time, and effort to make it what it is. So when I think about a project to make sure that our history is understood, heard, and established for the wide world to see, I think it's amazing. Oh God, it is you that will push us forward and help us to continue to be all that we can be. It is you. For good or bad, we can't erase the past. For good or bad, we just got to keep progressing and knowing that there is so much that we can do to see the power of what our ancestors, what our forefathers, our foremothers, what they've established, and make sure that the legacy goes on to the future.
All right, there we are. Thanks, guys. Hold it there. Another one. To kind of be in a space of brothers and sisters, and spiritual brothers and sisters. So not just thinking about that healing only in a personal way, but what does it mean in a context of South African landscape, and how does, church, help South Africans or South Africa sort of to heal the present and the past and traumas.
I think it shows people outside of the university that, we at Stanford really think about the local communities which we're part of, and are very intentional about making sure that all the resources of our university, which, there are many, can be used in some sense for the public good.